Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jake Miller from Fort Delaware State Park, and today for our special Facebook post we're going to do a video tour of Fort Delaware for you. So as you can see behind me, this is Fort Delaware. It was built in 1859 here on Peapatch Island to protect the river passage up to Philadelphia, which is about 40 miles north of us, and Wilmington, including the powder yards up at Hagley, and was used during that for that purpose throughout the Civil War. But during the Civil War was also used as a prisoner of war facility for captured Confederate soldiers and also for civilians from the Maryland, Delaware, and Pennsylvania area, anyone that did something that may have been considered disloyal to the United States. So we're just going to go through, talk about some of the rooms. Let's go inside. So here we are inside the fort in an enlisted man's kitchen. Now these kitchens are attached to mess halls at Fort Delaware, and there were 4 of those at Fort Delaware. Fort Delaware was built for a garrison of about 400 men, so you're talking about 100 men per mess hall. The soldiers, as a general rule, would have to elect a cook from among their battery, who would get a couple extra bucks a month for serving as a cook. The question is, does he actually know how to cook? Hopefully. If not, maybe if you're smart, you can pool your money and hire somebody that actually knows what they're doing to cook for your battery. As you can see, there's a number of great things to work with in here. We have a very large stove. Lots of space inside for baking. This is a wood stove, so you make your fire in the firebox here and heat up the entire thing. You can cook for a lot of people on this stove. You're also going to have, so the typical food that you're eating is not particularly great food. You're largely working with salt beef, salt pork, that kind of thing. But you do have the opportunity to get fresh bread at the bake ovens that they have here at the fort as well. Some of you may be wondering what this thing hanging in front of me is. Well, this is actually a scale. So if you needed to weigh out rations or something to that effect, weigh out your amounts, you'd stick your meat or whatever it is on this side, and then you'd have various different weights so that you could figure out how heavy it is on the other side. Alright, so here we have the ordnance supply room, or the ordnance storeroom. And this is the room within the fort where they would have kept any of the tools necessary to take care of the various weapons around here at the fort. Now that includes small arms like rifles, but also, more importantly, some of the really, really big cannons around here at the fort. So a lot of woodworking tools in here, a lot of boxes of supplies, things of that nature. When I say big cannons here at the fort, I really do mean big cannons. So we have here, you can see we have on the ground here, this is weighs about 100 pounds, and this is a shell for one of our guns here at the fort. And as you can see, this is hollow. The idea is you fill this with gunpowder, put a little fuse in there, and then when it fires, it lights, and when the fuse burns down, it explodes and turns this into shrapnel, which is not a good day to be on a ship. The other thing you can fire from these is a canister, which is this, basically a very, very large shotgun shell, and it's filled with these, which are very, very heavy, essentially very, very large, heavy buckshot. Alright, this is our issue room here at the fort. So this is kind of like your ordnance supply room, except this is for anything that's not related to weapons. So mostly you think of uniform items in here, trousers, coats, things of that nature, but also you got ink wells and pens and lanterns, lantern chimneys, stoves, just about anything you can think of. This is the supply area for that. So this is where you come to get your replacements. Alright, every good fort's got to have a dispensary, or essentially like your nurse's office for the fort. This would be attended by a physician or a surgeon, assistant surgeon, which could either be somebody that's in the Army as a doctor or a contract doctor hired by the Army. A lot of different types of medicines at the time. You're talking about some very dangerous medicines, actually, mercury, lead, things of that nature. One thing to note, this little item here, you still occasionally, in fact, well, within the last 60 years or so, you would perhaps have still seen these in the medical field. This is the stethoscope. So if you want to listen to the patient's heart, you're going to put the big end next to the heart, listen through the other, and as you can see, there is a little hole through there, and that's how you listen to the heartbeat back in the day. Alright, so this kitchen is a little bit different than the enlisted kitchen we saw earlier. This is an officer's kitchen. So officers, rather than eating food that was provided by the Army, they were responsible for providing their own food. And they also had a part of their salary built in so that they could hire somebody to do some cooking for them. So this room, you could have had 6 or 8 women all cooking together for different officers. Stove's not nearly as large, but it does have some nice features. There's actually a kick pedal here, so that if you've got a pie or something like that, rather than having to set the pie down to open the oven, you just press the kick pedal and it opens right up for you, which is pretty handy. The other thing that you've got in here is a bake oven built right into the kitchen. So the bake oven, the idea is it's all bricked in back there. You're going to make a fire inside the brick oven, and then you're going to shut the doors, let it sit for a while, and it's going to heat up the bricks inside. After a while, you're going to open that up. You're going to see if it's hot enough. If you can hold your hand in there for 10 seconds, it's not hot enough. At that point, you are going to rake out the coals, stick a bucket down here, rake everything out into the bucket, and then you can stick your pie, your cake, or your bread, whatever you have been baking in there, shut it up, and let it bake. Alright, so every fort has a nerve center. A lot of paperwork involved with a fort like this. You've got to keep track of the soldiers that are garrisoned here. Since you have prisoners here, you've got to keep track of those prisoners, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of paperwork that goes into that. This is the general's office, so this is where all that paperwork happened. General Alvin Sheff was in charge of Fort Delaware from 1863 through the end of the war. He had a number of different officers working with him out of this space as well. Now, if they needed to make copies, they didn't have computers at the time, so they would use what's called a copy press. And the idea is that you can take a sheet that you've just filled out in ink, you're going to put some onion skin on top of that, and then a blank form over that, and you're going to run this down. It's nice and tight. The pressure will actually squeeze some of that ink up through the onion skin onto the blank copy, and now you have a reverse copy. And from that reverse copy, you can then do the same thing and make copies of the original. Alright, so here we have the laundry area of the fort. Fort Delaware actually had hired laundresses. The Army hired laundresses to do the wash for soldiers that were here. And they actually kept them inside the fort. So they had sleeping quarters inside the fort. They had an area where they could work inside the fort. And they were given a ration by the Army, just like the soldiers. Laundry at the time was a little bit more complicated than it is today. You'd have basically two big basins filled with water, and you'd be using a washboard. So you cover this with soap, and then scrub your clothes until they're nice and clean, and you put them through the rinse water. Now, at that point, they had what are called rollers, the idea is that when you after you rinse your clothes, you're going to get the excess moisture off by running it through this wringer here. And this wringer has rubber rollers, which was a big adjustment, new thing at the time. Previously, the rollers were made of wood, and you had to take off each button individually if you were running something like a shirt through the wringer, a wooden wringer, because they would crush the buttons. So you can imagine if you're a laundress, you have to take off each individual button, run it through the wringer, and then sew it back off. Alright, so there's a big difference within the military between your enlisted men, which are the privates, corporals, and sergeants that do a lot of the grunt work, if you will, and your officers, who get things a little bit, the lieutenants, captains, up to generals, who get things a little bit easier. So the officers had housing inside the fort that was a little bit better. We are now inside of an officer's quarter. This would be a captain's quarter, so he's got his little parlor set up here, and a room next door, which would be sort of the master bedroom where he and his wife and children, if they have them, could live here at the fort. A couple of interesting things to note in here. The main one is, well, first of all, there is a fireplace here, but fireplaces are very inefficient for heating in the winter, so during the winter they actually would have brought coal stoves in. And there's a nice hole behind this picture hidden where you could vent out your coal stove into the chimney. Second thing is, really high ceilings. That's not because they had a bunch of giants living here back then. The idea is that if this fort is attacked and there's smoke coming in the windows, the smoke will rise up so that it's out of your eyes, and then it'll go out that little vent into the chimney that's up towards the top. So the engineers that designed this place put a lot of thought into various things like that. We talked a little earlier about some of the large heavy guns here at Fort Delaware. This is one of those. This is a 32-pounder Seacoast gun. Weighs about 7,000 pounds. This is one of the smaller guns that was at Fort Delaware, actually. Now, this particular one was not here at Fort Delaware. but it is the same type of gun that was here. This gun fires a 32-pound solid shot or a 28-pound shell, and it has a range of about a mile. And as you can see, there is a track along the floor here, so this can actually rotate. The artillerist would have to take this, which is called a maneuvering spike, and you can wedge this underneath the carriage on either side and actually move this about 30 degrees in rotation. All right, so we often think of forts, and we hear the word fort, we think of military soldiers, we think of officers, things of that nature. What we often don't think of is the various civilians that worked at Fort Delaware as well. And there were a number of blacksmiths, both civilian and military, that worked here at Fort Delaware. Now, blacksmiths make anything with iron and steel, door hinges, hooks, things of that nature. Not swords so much during the Civil War. But the idea is you've got your blacksmith set up here. You've got your forge. It is attached to a bellows, which provides oxygen for that fire. And you've got an anvil here. So you're going to, if you had a piece of metal, heat your metal up in the forge. Then you're going to bring it out. You're going to hit it with the hammer and move it into shape with using your anvil. Thank you for joining us today for this video tour of Fort Delaware. Make sure to like this video and our Facebook page. And every Friday at 11 a.m. we'll be posting more content like this, so check us out then too. Thanks very much.